Welcome, everyone. For those of you who do not know me or not familiar with me, my name is Art. I'm with No Code Devs, and we've partnered with Backendless here to bring you this workshop today. I think it's pretty exciting. It really is going to show you the power of no code and the power of Backendless and some of the things that you can do with their platform. The presenter today we're lucky to have Mark, who's the founder and CEO of the company Backendless. It is a no-code and low-code visual app development platform. They've been around since 2012, and without any outside financing at all, Mark has built the company up to a dynamic growing player in the application and software and development space. He is highly technical, so at the end, you can probably ask him your technical questions, but he works closely with the product team to keep Backendless on the cutting edge of the no-code technology space. Pretty excited. We've worked with Backendless quite a bit and really excited for this presentation today. So rather than hearing me talk, I just want to say thanks to Backendless and thanks for being a member of the No Code Devs community. We're glad to bring you these types of events. So hopefully you get a lot of value out of it. And this question comes up a lot, but if you can't, we hope you can stay for the whole time, but if you can't, the recording will be available a day or two after the webinar and we will email it out to all the registrants. So anyways, I'll hand it over to Mark. Enjoy. And thank you for being here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Art. Really happy to be here to present Backendless to you guys. And the topic is indeed quite exciting. In fact, 5 clicks, I'm glad it says less, because creating and launching an app in Backendless, if it were to be described in 5 clicks, that's about 150% more than it actually takes. And you will see that it really takes just 2 clicks to have a fully functional app in Backendless. But before we go there, just a few words about myself, and then slide changer stopped working. So let me, there you go, it did. It's just slow a little bit. So a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of Backendless. We've been in business since 2012. It took about, I'd say about less than a year to build the full first version of the product. And we kind of bootstrapping for the first, I'd say 3 years before the company started breaking even. My technical background, software engineer, turned entrepreneur. I don't write whole lot of code these days because the company has grown and it requires my attention elsewhere. Although I love everything technical, coding, and now that we are fully in the no-code space, I really like no coding, if there is such a term. But anyway, I've worked for small and big companies in the past, kind of got a feel for, startup culture and mega monsters like MCI WorldCom, if anyone still remembers that. That was a behemoth in the telecom industry. Backendless is my third bootstrap startup, by far most successful comparison to what I have done in the past. And let's talk about Backendless. So as I said, we started about, well, it's going to be 9 years this year. As you can see, just various milestones, we're gaining ground, gaining users, gaining attention of the analysts. And at this point, it is really tens of thousands of developers building applications with Backendless. I envisioned the system when we just started as a full end-to-end application development platform. Back then, the term no code hasn't really been coined yet, but the vision was really right there to create a system where one can build a fully functional application with minimal coding, like fully visual, and that would span over not just the back end, but the front end, really creating a complete application. Initially, we started with the back end for the reason that, in my mind, and it really can prove to be true, it is a bigger and more complex problem to solve. And the reason it became complex, and it really is complex by definition, is because the scalability of any system really lies in the backend. You could have fantastic, beautiful front end done with no code or done with code, but as traffic grows and as the number of users hitting your application goes up, if the backend cannot scale, the value of your beautiful UI really is zero. So we wanted to solve the backend problem first, specifically from the scalability perspective. And then with, of course, all the functionality that goes into the backend, that was really part of the game. But solving the scalability problem was the hardest challenge that we had to solve. So it took us some time to get to the point where we felt confident that yes, we can scale infinitely. And we had numerous deployments, and of course our centralized installation was and still is a huge help to kind of gauge how scalable we are. And at one point when we said, okay, yeah, we built a system that can scale, we started ramping up on the client side and building UI development tools that would be fully integrated with our backend. Okay, still kind of having a hard time switching between the slides. I'm not sure why. There you go. So full stack development, which is what we are. We provide a system for full stack development. At the highest level, there is a client side and there is a server side. And it doesn't matter whether your app is a mobile application or web application or hybrid application, still that split is going to be there unless you're building something that is just pure client side without any server. However, it will be a really tiny share of all the applications out there. Most of them, I would say 99.9% do require the server side. So what does it entail? Many things. The server side is more or less well defined. Of course, there are various verticals where there will be some specialties in the server side. Like for instance, with game development, you would need to have some sort of instant real-time capability, or in financials, you would need to have some specialized software that can do a lot of stuff, or in AI. But still, for the majority of the use cases, the server side would really entail a finite set of things, much like the client side as well. But let's kind of dig into it and then point out specific functional areas that would be attributed to both client side and the server side. And for everything that I'm going to mention, this is something you will find in Backendless. And I will quickly review this diagram that is going to be here, and then we'll switch to the product where I can point out those things, and then it will also demonstrate how you can go about building applications very quickly with Backendless. So here, of course, one of the biggest elements of the server side is the database, because frankly, I would say the majority of the applications are data driven. So you would need to have some sort of persistent storage. And some people, you know, for some people, it matters whether it is SQL or no SQL. And it really, in my mind, it doesn't really matter. Okay, because with the modern solutions and with Backendless, for instance, it is a hybrid solution. You do get best of both worlds. There are SQL relational data elements in our persistent storage, just like there are elements of the NoSQL. So you can store JSON trees and then run the searches and so on. So with Backendless, you do get the best of both worlds. Now, on the client side, so the elements that we have identified that are important for client-side development are page templates and UI themes. So page templates is sort of, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, where you have a template that has a certain layout and certain functionality, like for instance, a login, right? Very well understood problem. And there is a variety of different things that goes into login, such as implementing remember me kind of functionality, or dealing with, you know, user doesn't exist or user is disabled, and then redirecting it to certain page. So all of that would go into the page template. Then reusable UI components. So as you build your application, you would want to have some kind of component, well, a UI component that you can reuse between different screens and pages in your application. You would expect to have an application that can be rendered in both mobile and web. Of course, if you go with native web development, that cannot be rendered. I mean, a native mobile application, it cannot be rendered in the web. We strive for giving you an ability where if you build an application, it can be rendered on both in the browser and on mobile devices. Custom UI components. This is something that we hear almost daily, you know, being able to take any kind of UI component that you will find out there if you build one by yourself, and then being able to embed it into the app development tool. So here on this screen, the custom UI components and reusable UI components is something that we are working on. It will be coming out very soon. And the idea is that you can just grab any component out there, wrap it into something that Backendless will understand, and start using it in your application. And since we are talking about no code, this is kind of lower priority, but for those who do native development and just want to have tight control and write the code for the UI side, we provide native SDKs that are fully integrated with the backend. And those SDKs include Android, iOS, JavaScript, .NET, Flutter. Anyway, on the server side, there is a variety of different things. I'll just show them all on the screen. And every single one could basically be a separate presentation its own. But these are, I would say, foundational building blocks and elements of functionality that would be required to have on the server side to make that server side sort of a general purpose that you can adapt it to any kind of application. So here, with all of these elements that you see, including user management, file storage, PubSub, and push notifications, not only you get fully visual environment where you can manage elements from each individual block, but there are also APIs. And those APIs, from the no-code perspective, the way we're doing it, you basically have a visual logic block that gives you an ability to take advantage of this specific API. So for instance, being able to use the API for user registration or login, or being able to upload a file, or saving something in the database. Those are individual blocks that represent that API that you can use in a no-code environment. And then we will go over those in greater detail a little bit later in this presentation. But the idea that everything see on the screen, it really is what Backendless is about, okay? And by using these blocks, you can really build application of any kind of complexity in any kind of vertical sector. And it could be an enterprise application or consumer-facing application, doesn't really matter. Since the functionality on the backend is fully customizable and adaptable to specific use cases. And then on the UI side, it really is what kind of experience you're going to build. So all of this is what Backendless is about, as I said. Now, what we recently have done is we introduced the concept of marketplace. And the idea of the marketplace is that application, you can publish a full-blown application into the marketplace. We have started putting together some sample apps and populating that marketplace. So I will demonstrate some of them today. And the idea is that once you create an application in Backendless, you can take this application, publish it into the marketplace, and it becomes available to the entire Backendless community. Very soon, when you publish that application into the marketplace, you will be able to assign a fee that you would like Backendless to charge when someone creates an application from your blueprint. We call them blueprints. The idea is not novel. Those marketplaces exist everywhere. Like, for instance, if you look into the WordPress marketplace, tens of thousands of different blueprints. Many of them are done in a way where it basically gives you some basic functionality, but it is expected that you're going to start modifying it and kind of customizing it to your needs. Here with Backendless, it's very similar, but we're striving for providing complete functionality that you can modify also to satisfy your specific requirements. And with an e-commerce element where you publish it for a fee, then essentially you can create an additional revenue channel for yourself. If you find some niche and you just publish that app, and then as people create apps from your blueprint, you essentially can generate additional revenue with Backendless. So what I'm going to do next, I will switch into the actual product. We'll give you an overview of various functional areas, and then we will look into the marketplace and what it really means to create an application for marketplace or create an application from marketplace. So that's kind of the game plan. And then after that, there is going to be a separate section for in this workshop for Q&A. All right, let me switch to my demo. All right, so I'm going to minimize the videos. All right, so what we have here, this is Backendless Console. It is just one of the apps that already had it in there, and I opened it up for demonstration purposes. So in here, pretty much, and as you can see, starting from the very top, there is a section called Backend, and there is Frontend. And then Backend is everything related to the service side. And in here, you will find your database. And then in the database, you'll see that there is a listing of all the tables, and then for every single table, there are columns, and then the way the data is organized, sort of like a spreadsheets. And these spreadsheets can be related to each other. And in the database lingo, we don't use spreadsheets. We basically use the concept of tables. And then the tables have relations. So that's how you can basically create relational aspect of your database schema. Schema, of course, is important because that's where the data will reside in the database, and then it will dictate how you do queries from the database. From the schema programming perspective, there is a visual element to creating your schema. So if you go to the schema element, and then there is a visual modeler. So, and then for the visual modeler, you can basically see the actual diagram of all the tables that are connected to each other. And in this case, the table that I have selected is called country language. And as you can see, there is one-to-one relationship to a table called country. And then the table country also has relationships to a table called city. So here, just by looking at this diagram, you can kind of get an idea how the data is going to be related to each other. And then these relationships are important. So for instance, if I were to select the country and I want to get, get the actual languages that are present in this country, then I can run a query and get those relationships. Or if I run a query against the city and I want to get the related country, then that city is in, then once again, through this relationship, I can easily do that. So there are different ways to manage your schema. You can create your tables right from here, from the visual modeler, or you can switch to a table editor, and here you get a listing of all the individual columns. You can see the data type, you can create new columns, and so on. As far as the capabilities that exist in the database, it's enormous. Just the amount of functionality that exists in the database is huge, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but essentially the capabilities to run, it is called CRUD, create, retrieve, update, delete set of operations. All of them are built in. And then every single one of those operations can be extended to do a lot more. Like you can create bulk update operations where with a single request, it updates multiple records. You can create generated columns where the database itself will generate a value based on other values that exist in the database. Like for instance, if I think this table is called math. So here, for instance, I have a column called OP1, which is operand 1 and operand 2. And then notice that there is a column, and generated columns are in yellow. So the column called product, it is, as you can see right here, the definition, it's OP1 multiplied by OP2. So if I were to create a new record, actually I didn't have a permission to create a record, so because I invited myself into another application. But if I were able to create a new record, in fact, let me actually do that real quick. Let's not do that. It's going to be just too much. But anyway, the values in these yellow columns are automatically generated by the database. So you don't need to write any code to calculate, the power or the product of between some other two values. And you can create kind of conditional, like in this one, it says when the bool column is 1, and the value is going to be agree. When the bool column is 0, and the value is going to be disagree. So this way, you can see this is the bool column that I'm referring to. Anyway, so like if I change this to false, I don't have permission to do that. Sorry about that. Anyway, the point is you can delegate a lot of the functionality to the database itself. There is a REST console where you can run a bunch of queries to kind of get the actual results, and you can compose the actual conditions for retrieving the value. So there is a lot in there that is in the database. File storage. There is a complete file storage. Let me just quickly modify, because I'm going to be running into this permission problem over and over again. Speaking of permissions, there is a way where you can invite other people to your project, to your application. And that's exactly what I did, is I invited this Backendless demo, and I then granted all the permissions. Let me change that so the permissions are there. And if I refresh, there you go. So now I can see all the files. So as you can see, there is a file storage, and you can create directories. You can upload files in there. You can zip them. You can unzip. You can move files around. So if you're building an application that is that requires some kind of file storage, then you have that functionality built in. Not only this visual functionality that is here in the console, but all the operations on the files are available through logic blocks that go into the actual logic builder. We'll look into that as well. Anyway, messaging. So with messaging, there is a pops up messaging, which is a kind of well-known concept that's been around for ages. The idea is that you can have multiple apps tuning in to receive the message. Somebody else or some other part of the program publishes this message. Backendless automatically just delivers it to everyone. There is support for push notifications where you can compose this as a task push notification, and it will give you the preview of what it looks like on Android, what it looks like on iOS. You can define who's going to be getting this notification. You can configure all kinds of visual aspects with some additional buttons and icons and so on. You can save this template, and then it will be like the templates that you can use with just a single line of code or a single logic block to send out notifications to your subscribers. There is email marketing where you can set up different email templates, and they are fully visual. So right here, there's a visual editor for configuring your email template, and you can basically, once again, with a single logic block and your no-code app, to send out that email to a number of subscribers. All right. There is a concept of business logic in cloud code where you can create an API service, once again, without any coding. In fact, this one is going to be the shopping cart code. Like, for instance, here's the API called get instructions. When I invoke it, here's the result. This is what the logic for this looks like. And in here, this is the logic. Basically says set return result that consists of these strings, and then this is the actual result. And the shopping cart service consists of various endpoints to manage your shopping cart. And you can create your API services that do whatever. That can go out and fetch data from elsewhere, put it in the database, or run queries in the database. For instance, if we were to do it real quick, we have a table called city, okay? And in the city, if we were to create an API service that just fetches data from the city, it's going to go like this. So we're going to create city service, city API service. And then the method is going to be get cities. And then if we go into the logic for that get cities method, and then use this block to load table objects. And let's say we're going to be fetching it from city. So I'm going to be deploying this guy, and instantly now we have an API service that I can invoke and get the result. Okay. In fact, I can copy the endpoint URL, put it in the browser, invoke it, and then here I get the result from the database. So notice that it's pretty much instantly. I didn't have to write any code, but there is already code running in there that does exactly what I instructed to do. I can put some additional queries where I want to load the cities from, let's say, from the United States, where the country is United States. And this is how it would look. If I go and put some additional words, and I say country name equals United States. Hopefully I didn't mess up the names of the parameters, but if we go back and invoke it, notice that we got the cities with like New York, Los Angeles. So now the query is working where we got all the cities that exist in the United States. By the way, if we go back to the database, notice that one of the columns is called location and the data type is point. And then it contains a format, which is like an industry standard called WKT. It stands for well-known text. And then if you put visualize, you can actually see the cities that are right here that are visualized on the map. And if you click, let's say here's Kabul in Afghanistan. If I click on this, and it just finds that city on the map, and we'll see that here we are in Kabul, Afghanistan, I believe. Yes, we are right here. But anyway, which is just yet another feature in the database. All right. As far as user management, so all the users that are registered in your application, there's a table called users. And then here you will basically have, you can define your own schema for what the users look like, and you can configure basically what the user record looks like. And you can manage passwords, user roles. You can manage pretty much everything that is related to the users of your application. Okay, so that's kind of a super fast walkthrough of the backend. Now, the front end is right here under front end, and the front end is the visual UI builder. Here it's going to be something ugly, but we will switch to something that looks much better. And in here, you basically have your UI components, and then you can drag and drop those UI components. You can configure various properties, adjust what they look like on the screen. You can add your own styling. If you go to themes, there's a list of pre-built themes, and if you select one, it updates the preview. You can select a specific page. I don't really have any pretty pages in here. It's a basic demo. I don't know what it looks like. It's empty. But anyway, so you basically can select any of the pages from your application to see what it would look like on the screen with specific theme. But you can also build extensions, and extensions is really just a CSS specific complete class where you can customize the look and feel of your pages. Now, let's imagine that you actually build a complete app that does something useful and you want to publish it into the marketplace. So publishing into the marketplace is as simple as clicking this button. Okay, so in here you can define the name of your application, upload the screenshots, add the description, provide all this information. And when you click publish, it goes into this pending state where our team reviews the submissions, gets back to you if there are any changes that need to be made as far as app cleanup or perhaps improved description and so on. Once you're done and the blueprint is, well, here it's going to be page template. Once it is approved, it will appear in the marketplace. So for the marketplace, once your application is in the marketplace, what it's going to look like is when you create a new application, which is button right here, it's present on every single screen in Backendless console. We will show a list of those blueprints. So these blueprints are ready and approved. And then all of them are built with backend. So for instance, this cool app, which is sort of kind of a landing page for an app. If you click demo, you'll see exactly what it's going to look like. Okay. And then what you see right here is what was built with UI. Okay. So as you can see, it provides an ability to do complete styling and customization. The whole thing right here is database driven. So in here, if you want to customize a set of features, they are going to be in the database. If you want to customize, which reviews show up on that page, once again, it is in the database. You can change background, you can change all of the images, and I will demonstrate how that can be done. Or if we take a look at this blueprint, which is basically just a countdown coming soon, and then click on demo, and you see exactly what it looks like. And once again, this is also built with UI Builder. And there's really a countdown that once it goes to 0, there's going to be a different screen that shows this. So for instance, let's take a look at what this one looks like once you install it from the marketplace. So in here for this, I select this cool app blueprint, and I'm going to give it a name, cool app. It doesn't matter what the name is, though, completely up to you. You get your own subdomain, and you can select one of the several that are suggested here. You can select where that app is going to be hosted, either in our North American cluster or in the EU cluster. And then once you click create, then you're essentially going to be getting a new app in your Backendless console that will be created from that selected blueprint. Okay. And once it is in there, you'll be able to see exactly the database structure that comes with it. You'll be able to see the UI Builder page and start modifying it to meet your requirements and your needs. And that essentially just, as you can see, there were going to be 2 clicks. I selected the blueprint, click create, and it off it goes. Right now, it's going to packaging this app, transfers it to the North American cluster because I think it was originally hosted in EU. So all those things are happening, and once it is done, it's going to be created. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer because recently we've been kind of refreshing those blueprints. So once it's refreshed, it kind of goes through some additional caching that that is required. And then the subsequent creation by anyone using Backendless, it's going to be almost instantaneous. All right. So here we have this blueprint, and then when it starts, we get a set of instructions that describes where things are in the database, how to modify images, where things are stored. You can click close. You can always go back to your instructions by clicking this icon right here, and it will open them up. But here we are in UI Builder, and as you can see, here's the structure of that page, okay? And by clicking on any of the components, you can modify this picture or the title, or just various other things. So let's take a look at these features. So this is sort of a blueprint of the structure for the features, okay? And that is coming from the database. Let's take a look at what the database for this guy looks like. If we go to backend and click data, as you can see here, the database structure for features, gallery, packages, and so on. So in features, if we say, rather than bulletproof security, some awesome feature, right? And if we go back to the front end and just relaunch this page now from the application that we created, and you will see that one of the features, it will have the title, some awesome feature, meaning that we pulled that information. Here it is, some awesome feature. So it pulled that information from the database. All right, now, let's say if you have an idea for some app and you want to use some existing app as the blueprint, well, nothing will stop you from creating an app just like I did right now, modifying it, providing some additional value added features or services and so on, and then republishing it back to the marketplace. And that is going to be completely okay. And then the attribution is going to be done with your account, so it will show up that you are the author of that app, so long as that it does something new and different and unique. So we do not preclude you from republishing an app if it was created from some other application. Now, as far as the styling, so here you can see that many things look rather different. Fonts, margins, and so on. So how is that done? If you go to theme, remember we have the theme library right here, but extensions are showed up right here. So in the extensions, there's a bunch of them that are created. I mean, these are individual extensions that are associated with various sections of that page. So if in fact, if you select a particular extension and then click editor, you'll see that this is just pure CSS left, like for instance, for footer, okay? So here, if you modify it in your CSS extension, that will instantly apply to the actual page. I'm not going to do that because CSS is just not my thing, but for anyone building UIs with Backendless UI Builder, knowing CSS in life is kind of a must if you're striving for some unique look and feel. And then as far as the extension capabilities, everything that is built into less, and that includes mixins, animations, I think they're called variables, whatever, just everything that exists in less is applicable to Backendless. As far as the actual rendering of the page, there are 3 different layouts, so you can see what it's going to look like on the tablet, see what it's going to look like on the phone, and then as far as the styles which you assign, they will be completely recognized and adapted to the specific size of your page, regardless how it is rendered. Okay. Quite often there is a question, well, I build an application, how do I get it run on mobile? So there are 2 approaches that are available. Both of them are in the works to be released very, very soon. So one approach is that we're working on a general purpose viewer app. And then the viewer app is going to be in the app stores, both Apple and Google Play. Well, anyone can download that viewer app. Whenever you publish your UI Builder application, you'll be able to say, register my app in the viewer, okay? And then once you do this, you download the viewer, you'll be able to see your app in the list of apps in the viewer, select it, and then start using that application. And you can basically say, run it by default. So anytime you run the viewer, you'll be able to kind of see it right there at native mobile application. Alternatively, but I guess the caveat is that you lose your branding in the App Store. For some applications, it's not important. For some applications, it is important to have your own branding. So what we're doing is we're basically creating a project on GitHub that is really just a native wrapper that you can download, put together, rebuild it essentially with a link to your UI Builder application, and then publish it into the App Store. This way you get your own dedicated app in the App Store that has the behavior of your application. And then there's actually a third thing that we're adding is where once you build an application in UI Builder, it's going to be packaged as a PWA, progressive web application. Meaning once you run it on a mobile device, there's going to be a pop-up that says, save it as a separate icon on the mobile device. This way, it doesn't need to be published in the App Store. You get a dedicated icon on the device that the user can just tap and run that application. And that's going to basically be available out of the box. All right. So the thing that I want to highlight the most is that being able to create unique experiences that you can generate revenue from is what we want Backendless to be about for developers that look for new revenue streams, okay? And since the development community of Backendless is rather large and it's growing very, very rapidly, being able to create new experiences that other developers can instantly create apps from is something that I believe a lot of people would be willing to pay a fee if they get all of that functionality out of the box. So that's what we're basically doing. And by the way, here, when I click this publish, it publishes it just as a page template, which is really just page. If you want to publish the entire app, you go to the main dashboard and there's a button publish. So if you publish, that's going to be published as a blueprint. But the idea is exactly the same, whether it's a page template or blueprint, it just going to shows up in different sections of the marketplace. So page template is when you create a new page, it's going to be created from a template. If you create a new application, it's going to be created from a blueprint. By the way, creating a page from a template works like this. So if you go in the UI Builder and under editing page, if you say new page, here, a couple of templates that we already have, login and password recovery, and we're expanding. We're going to start expanding it very, very rapidly as well. Okay. Now, as far as the logic that exists on the UI, it is also done the same way as the logic that I demonstrated for the API services. And in here, let me just find something that has logic that I think to go to our features. So here I selected this block of features. And as you can see, there's a little puzzle piece that is highlighted green, means there's logic in there. So if you go in there, there you go. So here it loads this objects from the feature table. It sorts them by a column called order, and then assigns whatever it got back to a container that is called topic list. Okay, and that container topic list is this guy right here. See topic list, and the topic list is marked with dynamic list behavior, meaning once you assign a collection of those objects from the database, it will replicate this block that many times, as many objects that you have, with all of the contents that are provided by the database. So that's just an example of kind of having this logic in the UI. You can create logic that can be very, very complex, and we see applications that are super complex as far as the kind of things that it does. And then, of course, because here in this panel, you get, well, first of all, under Backendless, all of these blocks provide APIs into Backendless. Like this is, all of these blocks deal with user management. As you can see, this is login as guest user, login as user, register user. All of these blocks under data API with the database. And if you want to do messaging, like sending out emails, sending out push notifications, you get all of these blocks. And these are essentially APIs. As far as the actual logic and just flow control and so on. So under logic, you have your if statements and assignments, and under loops, you basically get those loops. So essentially, for pretty much every single element that would go into your logic or code, there is a block that you would use to essentially create your application. One of the questions might be, how do I learn all of this? For this, we do have a system called missions. And then, by the way, at the very top, there's a button called missions, okay? And then there are two starter packs of missions. One, if you want to do it with code, and the other one, if you want to do it without any code. So if you select the starter pack with codeless, you select this guy, and in here, you get this kind of map of individual missions. And then these missions consist of tasks. And every single task has a description. Most of them have a video that describe how to execute specific function in Backendless. Whenever you go through these missions, they will demonstrate how to do it with, if it is the pack with codeless, how to do it without the code, how to use all those codeless blocks. Whenever you finish this particular, any given task, you get some additional points that are called Backendless bucks. And you also get your experience points. And then both are matched right here. So here you have Backendless bucks, and here you can see the level of experience with Backendless. Plus you get badges, and you get some additional trivia questions that you can answer. You can multiply your Backendless bucks. Once you accumulate a certain number of Backendless bucks, if you go to the section Backendless bucks, you can see your activity of how many you earned. You can see how to earn additional ones, and you can redeem them. So you can redeem them to buy, to pay for Backendless subscription, or you can buy various items in our store, such as baseball caps, t-shirts, flip-flops, whatever. So there is a way to basically convert those Backendless bucks into something real, or pay for your subscription with Backendless. As far as subscription with Backendless, so from the money side, there are several options here. So if you go to billing, there are 3 pricing plans. 2 of them cost money. As you can see, it's 35 bucks per month or 149. And the third one doesn't cost anything. It is a free subscription. It's called Springboard. The caveat is that the Springboard either needs to be purchased, and it costs 50 bucks one-time fee, or earned, or you can earn it essentially just going through missions, executing the missions that are right here, start with. Once you get to this milestone, Springboard is unlocked, and you can start using it completely for free. Okay, so we provide a free plan, but it's either earned or purchased with a one-time fee. But the free subscription is definitely there. Where was I? Yeah, so on the subscription side. So if you go to billing, you can switch between the plans, and you can convert Backendless bucks that you have to actual dollars to pay for the subscription and so on. So that's where we are. I think I'm doing on time. Not very good. I think let's just switch to the Q&A since we don't have a lot of time left. And if there is something else you guys want to show, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation, and hopefully everyone here got a really good sample of some of the things that you can do on the back end and the front end with Backendless. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, for a lot of people that are learning any new system is how to learn it. And you know as well as I, it's really hard to pour through forums and message boards to try to figure out how to build something or how to make an application work. So I, for one, as a marketing person, love the gamification of the Backendless bucks and the ability, to convert that into something tangible, whether it's to pay for the service or like you said, something in the store. But anyway, that was a great presentation. I hope that everyone got a lot of value out of it. There has been some questions. I think Chris, who's also with Backendless, has answered some of them, but for the benefit of the group, there's a couple that are not have not been answered here. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna read those questions, and then Mark, you can address them. And if you have any other questions that you might want to ask, feel free to throw it into the chat, because there's so many people on the call. I think it's just easier to throw it into the chat, and then I'll moderate the question. So one question here from Evan was, it looks like users have a baseline schema that they can build off of. That's his question. Could you address that?
Whenever you create a new application, in fact, let me do it right now. So one of the options is to create a blank app. Okay, so the blank app template or blueprint comes with just bare bones database. Essentially, it's an empty database, and the users table has minimal schema. In fact, let's demo blank. Let's create one and see what it looks like. I believe the minimal user schema will definitely have password, because it is required, and I believe email address will be used as the identity column. So here we have this blank database, and then the schema for users, again, as you can see, has name and email. And notice that identity radio button is assigned to email. And what that means is whenever you use the login API, either with code or without code, the login API consists of two parameters, user ID and password. And there are other ways to do the login. I'll touch base on that. But with the native login provided by Backendless, email is the identity. You can switch it to something else. But there's name. It is really not required. You can get rid of that. There is password. BL user locale. It's a system level column. The way it works is whenever users register, either with code or without code, we take their locale, either from the mobile device of this native app or from the browser, and that is passed into the database. Where it becomes particularly useful is if you're building an application that targets different locales, different geographies. Then in any kind of outbound communication, whether it's email or push notifications, you can create different versions of your emails and push notification messages that are customized to individual locales. So for users from Spain or Spanish locale, you can send out push notifications and emails in Spanish. And then for someone from Germany, it could be in German, if it is applicable to what you're doing. And then the value of this BL user locale will be populated completely automatically. Okay. Some other columns that you see here, such as owner ID, created, updated, are also system level columns. So whenever user is created, then the created column will automatically have the date timestamp of when that record was created. Or if the user updated their profile, then the updated column will also have the value. But to answer your question, this is the default schema of the users table.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question here. Do you have a recommended strategy for asset uploading? An example would be an Instagram app that a user uploads photos. Does Backendless have something analogous to S3?
I'll start with the second question. So the Backendless analogy to S3 is the file. So here I created an app that is called demo blank app. And as you can see in the file storage, this is the file storage that is associated with your application. Okay, so it's basically in a complete silo that is visible strictly to your application. As soon as you upload something in here, it is instantly available through the APIs or through your UI builder application. Essentially, it is instantly available. So if I go inside of the web, if I create a new file, okay, and I will call it hello world.html. And then in here, let's just say this, it's going to be this hello world. Okay, and I save this file. Okay, so now we have this hello world. If I take the URL of this file, so here it is, I just copied the link to that file into the clipboard and I open it in the browser, okay, the file is right there, okay. Additionally, what I'd like to mention is that for every single application, there is, well, by the way, the URL is kind of long and ugly. But if you go to the manage section, and in here, you will see that there is a subdomain that is assigned to your application. In this case, I didn't select one, I just picked whatever was there by default. It's qpump.backendless.app. So if I go here and I select this guy right here, and I can completely replace all of this with my subdomain, it's still going to be exactly the same file, okay? Or if you don't care about the subdomain that we assigned to you, you can assign your own domain, okay? So you basically click on this little green button, add your own domain. It needs to be mapped in the DNS pointing to us, and files will be served with your domain. So from that perspective, I think it is way better than S3, because with S3, to get this functionality, you have to jump through so many hoops to get there, as it typically works with Amazon. Not to say anything bad about Amazon, but it's just typically about 30x of number of steps that you have to do in Amazon versus Backendless. And by the way, if you assign your own domain and you are on the Cloud9 or Cloud 99 plan, basically on the paid plans, we will generate free SSL certificate for your application. So all the traffic is going to be over HTTPS. Additionally, the security, of course, the security is going to be there, is automatically built in. So for instance, for this hello world of HTML, okay, if I don't want the users who are not logged in to see this file, all I'm going to do is I will open up the security, and then in the roles permission, I will say that not authenticated user cannot read this file, okay? And at this point, if I go back and just refresh this page, boom, instantly says that the user has no permission to this file. The security system can be way more elaborate than what I just demonstrated. You can basically, differentiate it between different users and assign roles to users. So you could have a very rich security system that comes into play whenever you're fetching data from the file storage or from the database, or updating in the file storage, or updating in the database across the board. So security is very, very important to us. And I believe we made it as simple as possible, where you don't even need to, well, with security, you always need to think what you're doing, but we got it to the point where it's very, very straightforward.
Awesome, thanks. Think that we'll do like one more. We have a couple minutes, so we'll get one more question in. And if you have any additional questions, by the way, you can email them to myself, art@nocodevs.com, and I will forward them along to Chris or Mark here, and we'll get them answered for you for sure. So, what is the lead time to show in the Apple Store or Google Play after you hit publish?
So with Backendless Viewer, which is an application that we are publishing into the App Store, the moment when you hit publish, it will appear instantly. Okay, so with Backendless Viewer, the moment when you published your UI Builder application, essentially publishing UI Builder application, we will package everything as the one PWA, compress all the things that can be compressed. And essentially, there's going to be this web bundle that is deployed, by the way, into the file storage of your application. And when you select the checkbox to say, also register in Backendless Viewer, we will do all the magic so your app shows up in Backendless Viewer. So the lead time is going to be, I would say, sub-second. And if you want to remove it from the app viewer, once again, you just go back to the management settings of your app and say remove it from the apps from Backendless Viewer. If you are building your own native mobile app, the way it would work is we provide the shell, native shell that includes web view components. So essentially, your app becomes a hybrid app. There is a native shell that inside renders your UI Builder application. Then it's going to basically be whatever the lead time that Apple and Google dictates, because they will go through all the reviews. They will come back to you. More than likely, you will have to have a fight with Apple. But if you're lucky, or if it just works, then it's going to be as long as it takes.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer.
Really quickly, I wanted to demonstrate one other thing. I think it was Philip that asked about a client portal. One of the blueprints that we're working on right now, it is called Sierra, and I just kind of want to give you a quick preview of what that app is going to look like. It still wants to log in. But it can be rendered here. But it's essentially going to be a kind of a CRM system where you can manage your clients and companies and estimates and projects and expense reports and invoices. So all of that is going to be basically part of that blueprint that you'll be able to instantly get and create your application and start modifying it to your needs. So I'm not sure, Philip, if this is what you have in mind, or it's going to be something different. If this is along the lines of what you're thinking, feel free to just ping us and we can give you a preview so you will know what's coming, and that will save you a little bit of time.